The Presidential Election Petition Court has held its inaugural session, preceding the hearing of petitions seeking to nullify the outcome of the 2023 presidential election. At the session, a 5-member panel of justices of the Court of Appeal that will hear and determine all the 5 petitions challenging the declaration of Eshiemoghie Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress as winner of the presidential election were revealed. Whereas the panel will be headed by the presiding justice of the Abuja Division of the Court of Appeal, that's Justice Haruna Samani. Other members of the panel are Justice Stephen Ada, Justice Monsurat Bolaji Yusuf, Justice Bulo Kurumo Ugo, as well as Justice Abba Mohammed. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshiemoghie has been tracking the proceedings and is standing by now to provide more updates. Thank you so much for joining us, Godfrey. Do you have anything new to tell us since the update that you gave us during the morning show?
Yeah, so good afternoon, Cynthia. Of course, what has happened today is the fact that Action Alliance Party has officially withdrawn its petition before the tribunal. Of course, this happened, and then subsequently the Presidential Election Petition Court dismissed the petition. Of course, this whole Action Alliance petition had been hinged around the nomination of a candidate as Hamza Al-Mustafa, which a faction of the party had said wasn't their choice candidate for the post for the election of president, of course. So this party sorted out their differences and said this wasn't our choice candidate. Of course, after reaching a common ground, they decided to withdraw the petition, and of course it was ultimately struck out by the petition court. And then subsequently, they had 2 other petitions, those of the Labour Party and the Action People's Party. That of the Labour Party, of course, basically the petitions have not been heard as they should be. So what we just heard is a pre-hearing stage. This is like the preliminary stage before the real actual hearing of this petition. This is where you consider the number of witnesses to be brought, the kind of documents to be brought, the length of time that will be required to go through their cases, the petition, to see it to its logical conclusion. So this is just the pre-hearing stage. This is not the actual hearing. So at this point, they sort out all the gray areas and the lead up to the actual petition hearing. So far, today we heard those of the Action People's Party and that of the Labour Party. And the presidential candidate of the Labour Party was here in court alongside the party's Labour Party chairman, Julius Abure. So they were here in court, and all the other politicians. And then the leadership of the APC was represented by the governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong. So it was a full house. The court was packed full to a point that some lawyers had to stand all through the proceedings today.
All right, some lawyers standing. Certainly this is garnering quite a lot of attention. A lot of people have been waiting for this. But give us a sense of the atmosphere outside the court. Are people there probably trying to cheer on their party and the presidential candidates of these parties that have taken these cases to the tribunal? Talk to us about this.
Well, of course, we know there's been so much in the lead up to today. This is the point of deciding who actually is Nigeria's president. Of course, elections, like I said earlier, elections don't end up at the polling units. They have to bring them to the courts. So this is one of those courts that will decide who is going to be Nigeria's next president. Of course, we had what transpired in the lead up to the elections. Of course, Nigerians had high hopes when they brought the Electoral Act, which was like the holy grail of conduct of elections. That was, it seems like a document that was infallible. In the fallout of the elections, of course, Nigerians were disappointed. So, and they were thinking that they were going to get an election that would be seamless, as it were, where people would actually get their votes to count. But of course, that didn't happen. That's the view of many now. But then this is a court where they want to see a semblance of closure where their votes will eventually, as it were, count, because they are seeking redress at the court, at this presidential election petition court. So they want to see that, so for the case of the obedience now of the Labour Party, they want to see if their petition will scale through, because they have brought in their arguments that INEC acted in breach of the Electoral Act by failing to upload the result on its result viewing portal right there at the polling units on election day, until after a public outcry that prompted the electoral body, electoral umpire, to do so belatedly. So this is that opportunity that the Labour Party, that's the last straw, that the Labour Party is seeking, that perhaps they could get some redemption, what they failed to have gotten at the polling units. Perhaps they're thinking that this will be the last hope of the party, perhaps to get that closure and to have their candidate become Nigeria's next president. Of course, the same thing similar thing is what the candidate of the PDP, that's Atiku Abubakar, is also seeking from the court. It had faulted the election of Bola Ahmed Tinubu on grounds of substantial non-compliance to the Electoral Act and in breach of the actions of INEC seem to deemed as being in breach of the INEC's own regulations, failing to upload the result onto its result viewing portal at the polling unit. So you're going to see there's high sense of optimism that the court may deliver a judgment that will favor either of these two parties. But then there's this sense of in another sense of the word, there's still another view that this whole tribunal sitting is just more like fulfilling all right, quote unquote, fulfilling all righteousness. That is hard, that it has hardly been heard where a president-elect in Nigeria was removed by a tribunal. That is why people are more like wanting the tribunal to begin its hearing early, to round it off before Inauguration Day, which is May 29th. Of course, that is highly unlikely as it seems, because we're still at the pre-hearing stage. Of course, it's highly unlikely that hearing will be completed and determined before the Inauguration Day. So there's a semblance of a loss of hope that once the president-elect and his vice presidents are sworn in on May 29th, it's highly unlikely that they would be sacked by the election tribunal. So the sense of optimism and pessimism, rather, that is what we are having here. People are, torn between both emotions, really. So it's not fully sense of optimism as it is. So some people are just expressing cautious optimism with respect to whether this tribunal will deliver the decision that they are actually seeking.
Godfrey Eshiemoghie reporting live from the tribunal pre-hearing.